Hi, my name is Nick Russo, Senior Service Provider Solution Architect with Trend Micro, working closely with our MSP partners in their journey in Vision 1. In this video, we'll continue the build-out of our Vision 1 tenant for an end customer, focusing on the creation of a server and workload protection product instance, creating policies in that instance, and step through installing the agent using the installer package and the deployment script. We'll start off by going to Service Management in the left-hand menu, then Product Instance. In this window, similar to the last video, we're going to click Create Product Instance, and then in the flyout to the right in the Instance Type dropdown, we'll select Server and Workload Protection. Provide a display name, then we'll select United States for the region and click Save. In the Product Instance window, we'll now see an entry for the Server and Workload Protection instance we just created with a status of provisioning. After a short period of time, the status will switch to Connected. We're now ready to create a new policy in the Server and Workload Protection instance we just created. Navigate to Endpoint Security, then Server and Workload Protection. Next, we'll click Policies at the top of the page. On the Policies tab, make sure Policies on the left-hand menu is selected. Before creating a policy, it would be helpful to understand how the hierarchical structure of policies can be applied to systems with this endpoint protection solution. At the top of the policy list, we have our base policy, and when creating a new policy, we have the option to inherit settings from the parent policy. I can set the various protection options, anti-malware, web reputation, etc., to inherit their settings from the parent policy above it. Additionally, there are other settings in the policy that can be inherited. By setting a protection module to inherited, I can impact the children policies by setting a feature to off, where a child policy is inheriting the parent's setting, thus disabling the child policy's protection modules, which is what I'm showing on the screen here. Additionally, there are settings within each protection module that can be inherited or that may be configured separately from the policy. For example, in the anti-malware module, we can specify granular settings for the real-time, scheduled, and manual scans without impacting the base settings of the module, whether it being on or off. For more information on configuring various modules in server and workload protection, please refer to the link in the description of this video. Another important configuration item to point out is that depending on which features in this policy we enable, will determine whether an Endpoint Pro license is allocated or not. Features like integrity monitoring, log inspection, and some of the rules provided in the intrusion prevention module fall into the Endpoint Security Pro licensing category. For more information on the breakdown of functionality for each endpoint licensing category, please contact your account manager. Now that we have a policy in place for server and workload protection, deploying the agent is very simple. There are two options for deployment. Similar to standard endpoint protection, we can collect the agent installation package from the console, or we can leverage the deployment script to install both the agent and the sensor at the same time. To collect the install package, navigate to Endpoint Security, then Endpoint Inventory. At the top center of the page, click Agent Installer, then under Server and Workload Protection, select the operating system where the agent will be deployed, then the protection manager that was created at the beginning of this video. For Windows, execute the endpoint-basecamp.exe file in the package to install. For Linux systems, deployment may vary. In the Linux package downloaded, extract the files and execute the txmbc command followed by the word install, so /txmbc space install. With this deployment option, there's an additional step required after installation to assign the appropriate policy to the protected system. By doing so, we enable the protection options that are specified in the policy like anti-malware, web reputation, intrusion prevention, etc. The secondary method for deploying the server and workload protection agent would be to leverage the deployment script for the platform to which you're deploying. In the Endpoint Inventory page, click the Agent Installer button again, then the Deployment Script tab. Select Server and Workload Protection from the Protection Type dropdown. We now have multiple fields to customize the deployment of the agent. Select the operating system, then the protection manager, and normally you can leave group set to none, or you can select the group folder where the computer object should land. Next, select the policy that should be applied to the system post-installation. For now, all other options can be left as the default setting. In the Preview Script text field at the bottom of the page, you now have a script to be copied and executed on the system where the agent will be installed. For Windows, we'll provide a PowerShell script, and for Linux, a Bash script. We've now successfully created a server and workload product instance, a policy for that endpoint solution, and stepped through the deployment of the Windows and Linux agent using both the agent installer package and the deployment script. If you have any questions from the steps covered in this video, or if our team can assist with designing a best practice policy, please reach out to your account manager and we'll set up some time to discuss further. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and we look forward to continuing your journey in Vision 1.